Welcome to the Art Colony, a podcast about art and art history in Provincetown. My name is Gaston Lacombe. It was January 2022, or maybe it was February, but anyways, early 2022. I was out having breakfast with Greg Salvatore, who at that moment still ran his gallery from the Whalers Wharf, right by mine. Greg announced to me that he was about to move his gallery out to the east end of town to take up the location of the old Cobalt Gallery. As Greg told me this, an idea flashed through my head, and I said, "Hold on a minute, Greg." I picked up my phone and I wrote a text. "Hey, Eric, this is Gaston. Would you like to open a gallery in Provincetown?" And that Eric, my friends, is Eric Lesh, artist and owner of the E. Lesh Gallery in the Whalers Wharf, and our guest today, and my neighbor in the Whalers Wharf. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Gaston. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to have you here.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. And it's so crazy to hear that story because before you reached out, I had never even contemplated the idea of having an art gallery of my own.
I know.
So you're the reason that I'm that I'm here, but literally here. So.
Yeah. And we'll get to talk about all of that and what you're doing in the gallery and how you got here. But first of all, we need to tell our guests. Who is Eric Lesh?
Well, I'm Eric Lesh. I'm a figurative artist. I'm the owner of Eric Lesh Gallery here in Provincetown. We're in our 5th season, which is crazy. Before that, I was an LGBT rights lawyer in New York. I even had a legal podcast like this where we talked about the law and LGBT rights. I was a law professor for a little while. Before that was an actor. So I went to school for musical theater at the Boston Conservatory. So many different careers, but I live with my husband we've been partnered for 26 years, and my Brussels Griffin, who you know well, Pippa, who spends most days in the gallery with me.
Also known as the mayor of the Whalers Wharf.
She is.
Yeah.
She sits right in the middle of the passers-by, and people will like part ways to get around her. Yeah, and I'm passionate about justice, equality, creativity, horror movies, musical theater, and naked men.
Good. Was your family an artistic family? Did you start off in an environment that was full of arts?
Not really, no. There are pictures of my dad. He grew up on a farm in Indiana, and there are pictures of my dad. There's one in black and white where he's wearing a full face of rouge and tap shoes. So he does have some background in like singing and dancing. He's got a bass, a really low voice. But no, mostly I grew up doing theater because my parents put me in it so that I had some kind of community because I seemed kind of different than other kids. And that gave me a feeling of belonging.
We had an episode just a few episodes before you where we talked about the fact that Provincetown is a very welcoming place, whatever your background is. You can come here, and if you want to be an artist, Provincetown will, hold your hand and say, "Come on, let's do this."
Right.
But you started off in a whole different type of art. You were in the song and dance type, in the musical theater. That's what you studied at university, right?
Yeah.
So what brought you to that?
Oh, God. I always thought that was what I was going to do when I grew up. That's where I made all of my early friendships. It's where I first learned to like feel most myself. I loved musical theater. I loved singing and dancing. I liked, just being in front of a big crowd of people. And so I spent literally every second doing that when I was young and then went to school for it. My parents were very supportive of it. My dad used to sit there and record everything that I ever did. That's what I always thought I was going to do. And so I went to Boston Conservatory. I was in the first workshop of Spring Awakening, the Broadway musical, did plays around the country. And then just one day, it kind of was like, I was always struggling to get that next job. And it was crushing. It really, when you don't have that sense of identity all of the time, and it depends on you getting a job, or people say, what are you doing right now? And you're unemployed. It just really takes an emotional toll. And so I was like, I love other things. With a BFA, I can do very few things. So I can be a lawyer. They'll give a law degree to anybody. And so that's what I decided to do.
But you had to go to law school, right?
No, they just gave it to me.
They just gave it to you?
I do remember at orientation, we were all sitting there, and one of the other people, they listed everybody's degree, where they were from, and the names, and mine said BFA Boston Conservatory. And I remember I was sitting there with my mom, and the lady in front of me was like, this guy went to musical theater school, you know? And I was so much better at law school than her. So that's the...
And where did you go to law school?
I went to Hofstra, which is in Long Island. And I went for LGBTQ rights. So it was very early fellowship. So they paid for my school if I was going to go into that field.
Then tell us more about the kind of work you did as a lawyer.
Well, I started, like my first job out of school was at Lambda Legal. So they're the oldest and largest legal organization doing impact litigation for LGBTQ rights. And yeah, I started there when it was the marriage equality litigation. So it was like at the time where we were winning all of these state court fights and then federal court fights about the freedom to marry. And it was such a thrilling time to be at an organization that was directing the course of the future, something that I cared so deeply about, and to be winning all of the time. It was like, oh my God, I cannot believe we had, Justice Kennedy is the swing vote on the Supreme Court who happened to be LGBTQ friendly. And so we were winning all of these cases, and it felt like that was the future. And I remember when Scalia died, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. For the next, couple of decades, this is going to be, we're just going to win everything. And it shows.
And then that got sabotaged.
Yeah.
But on your CV, you have the Lambda Legal. You also say you were executive director of the LGBT Bar Association of New York. Tell us more about that.
So it's an organization that it formed in someone's living room, because at the time you could be disbarred for being gay and a lawyer in New York. So this was back in the 70s. So they started this meetup where you wrote in, it was in the Village Voice, an ad that was like, if you want to join our little group of gay attorneys, come ask me for my address and you can meet with us, whatever. So it started off as an organization like that, and then it grew into an organization where it was, $1 million organization of LGBT judges and lawyers. And, we helped get judges on the high court in New York. We did CLE stuff. We did litigation.
What's CLE stuff?
Oh, God, continuing legal education.
Okay.
So we would offer like, here's how to do wills and trusts. And, here's the latest in whatever the kind of field was. But yeah, so I ran that organization for a while. Used to lead our contingent through Pride, March with the Governor.
And when I met you, you were still working as a lawyer.
Right.
Was this something you were deeply passionate about, or was that just the job you had at that moment?
Before I met you, I had no idea I was going to be an artist full-time ever. It was the thing that I was going to do. I went from Lambda Legal, where I was actually doing a lot of like the litigating stuff. And I left during the Trump administration when it just felt so demoralizing to do that kind of work, to care every single day about every new development that was so bad. And then with the LGBT Bar Association, I did a lot of judge stuff, like making sure that courts were fair for queer people. And so I always thought, like, I'll either run a bigger nonprofit organization or I'll be a judge one day. And so I was literally thinking I was going to be a judge. So yeah, that's where I was going. And then, yeah, things changed.
But yeah, because I met you, it's not like I said, Eric, you're now going to be an artist. You already were, because we met through this queer art fair circuit. I think the first time I met you was at Barnwood.
Yeah.
Stephen Hangst, who used to be the executive director of the Provincetown Business Guild here in Provincetown, before he even did that, he would literally have an art fair in his backyard in an old barn that he called Barnwood. And he would invite queer artists from all over. And at one point, we were exhibiting at the same time there. And then not long after, we met at the Art Gaysel Fair in Miami, which is a satellite fair of Art Basel in Miami. It's run by Alex Guerra, who lives partially here in town and partially in Miami, where he owns the Gathering Hotel.
Mhm.
And during Art Basel, every room in the Gathering Hotel is taken over by an artist, and it becomes sort of a queer art fair. People could go from room to room. So I met you there the second time. We had a corner where it was you and me
Yeah.
and Melissa Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Who's going to show in my gallery this summer? Don't miss the show. Melissa Wilkinson is showing at Studio Lacombe in early August.
We always love a plug.
I know, right? And yeah, and you were creating art. So how did the art come into your legal life?
I mean, there are so many things with Art Gaysel that like that's what prepped me for wanting to be a galleryist. Like I had to stand there and show, my work and actually be physically present. And a lot of times you don't have to do that and negotiate all of the things that go along with that. And I really liked it. Um, but before like getting to that point, I just had a hobby of when I had an LGBT clinic that was out of the community center at the LGBT center in New York. It offered free legal services, and they also had a figure drawing group. And so there was a naked man that would pose every week. It had been going on since the height of the AIDS epidemic. And so it was in the same room. You walk in. I knew this dancer that was posing. I was like, oh my God, I want to see him naked. And so I'd never drawn before, really. I have no training in art. And I sat there and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. You're in a room with all of these other gay men, some very, very old that have been doing it for a really long time, that take it very seriously and have all their stuff. And so I sat there in the corner by the heater and did it on a little pad. And the next week I took up a little more space and a little more space. And it just became something that I loved. And then the pandemic hit. And so when that happened, it was my outlet for what I did as a hobby to like get through the pandemic. And I did it over Zoom. So there were all these content creators from OnlyFans that couldn't make content because they couldn't sleep with other people or whatever. And so they couldn't do photo shoots, anything. And so I was drawing them naked on Zoom, and then we'd post it on Instagram. And so it started taking off, and people would be like, would you draw me? I'll pay you. I'm like, oh my God, this is just, something I do. And all these followers are coming. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I loved it, and I did it more and more and more while I was doing my full-time job. Um, yeah, and then Art Gaysel happened, and I was next to you, and I remember as I was there, I wasn't making much money. My stuff is like ink drawings at the time, and they're little things, and I posted them all over the room. And I had this idea that I was like, what if I drew people live in the bathroom while I'm here? And I was like, $100, it's 5 minutes. I'll draw you in the bathroom, whatever, and I'll give you the piece. And so that was how I made all my money. I was like, you know what? I know how to do this. I can do this. And I absolutely loved it.
I want to go back to the drawing group you were discussing, you were talking
Yeah.
about. A lot of people, when they think about going to a drawing group, even like you run one of the drawing groups here in Provincetown now, the first thing they say is, oh, I've never drawn before, or I don't know how to draw. I'm going to embarrass myself. This is going to be too hard. So your first time in this drawing group, did you right away like pick it up and draw some beautiful drawings, or did you feel like, oh shit, I really need to work on this?
I mean, I had drawn as a kid. I drew because I had this crush on this guy that also was an artist. He was very good, but I would follow him around and we would draw together and whatever. So I had some skill. I had a drafting table when I was a kid. I thought I was going to be very serious. I wasn't very good, but yeah, I feel like what I know how to do is talk to people. And so I made a lot of friends that took it very seriously, and I listened and learned. So most of the time I was just asking questions, but I don't know that I had any innate skill. I've always drawn the same way, which is like some people see shadows when they draw a figure, and I see, contours. I draw line work. All of my work has line work somewhere involved. So I've always been that way. So I settled into my style pretty early. Um, but yeah, but now that I see people who've never drawn before and they sit down, I have a bunch of techniques for like, you just kind of want to free yourself from thinking about the page or thinking about the proportions. You kind of want to, if you can look at the figure while you're doing it and not look down at the paper, you look down at the end and you feel like you have this expressive drawing that you didn't spend time like painstakingly mapping out. And so that can be freeing.
Welcome back. My weekly reminder to follow us on Instagram at the Art Colony Podcast. And also, if you want to help us out and keep this show on the air, you can send us a tip at buymeacoffee.com. You go there, you do a search for the Art Colony Podcast, and you can leave us a tip. And I want to thank S.M. Romberg for leaving us a monthly contribution. I didn't even know you could do that. And yeah, so he signed up to send us a monthly contribution. So thank you very much, Mr. or Mrs. S.M. Romberg. I don't know what the first name is. Eric,
Yeah.
we were just talking about your art and your style. So yeah, you have a very specific style. It really stands out. If you were to describe your style to someone, what would you say?
I would say it's whimsical. It's expressive, it's whimsical. I strive to make my work so that it makes you smile. So some of my work is very, very graphic. It's all nude figure work, but I draw people doing all sorts of things. And I always feel like even that work should make you smile. So I would say my influences, like if I look at other artists that kind of do what it is that I do, I love Al Hirschfeld very early on when I was a kid who did line caricature portraits of Broadway. And then of course Keith Haring, which is also very expressive and quick. Um, and yeah, Jean Cocteau.
I
Yeah,
had never thought of Jean Cocteau, but yeah, it's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Your line work is very similar to what he does.
It does. Yeah,
Yeah. And often you'll just, do a whole figure with just one single line.
yeah.
That's quite something.
I mean, it doesn't actually always happen exactly like that. There are some that do that. Sometimes I'll use a pencil and go and kind of like I feel like a magician giving away a trick, but I will go back later and apply the line work so that I have it mapped out exactly right, particularly if I'm doing a portrait of somebody. But yeah, a single line. I have a single line drawing of it's a portrait of Keith Haring, so it'll like start at the beginning around his ear and then go through the glasses and all the way.
And you were saying you work mostly with the nude figure. However, you also have a lot, as you were just saying, a lot of queer icons on your walls.
Yeah.
Because I do all of your printing, so I see
I know.
I see all of what you had there. But you have like a huge collection of Broadway stars
Yeah.
and of musicians and artists. Tell us more about that.
It's so funny. I feel like there are the people in my life, like my parents, who actually know what it is that I do now. But they're like my friends on Facebook that think all I do is Broadway portraiture, you know, and that's what I present. And then there are my Instagram followers that know that it's all, naked men. But they're two different worlds. So some people don't even know that I draw naked men. So that aspect, it's like, Stephen Sondheim, Bernadette Peters, all the, queer icons that I loved as a kid. And they very much are inspired by like an Al Hirschfeld kind of style. I
Mhm.
even have some where I've hidden little things like Bernadette Peters has a Chrysler building in her dress and a bass clef in her ear. Um, and so I did that for a while, but what I really love about doing art is working with people. And so that was fun. But my favorite thing is like when I'm in the room with somebody and I'm drawing them and we're talking and it's really great.
When I first met you, most of what you were presenting was digital art.
Mm.
Is that how you started?
No, I I think as I started to think about how I was gonna sell my art, I I needed to play with color in a way, and I used mostly ink pen, was the way that's how I express myself, and I had no experience with, like, acrylic or oil or any of the things that an artist would use to have color, and so it was like, "Oh, well, I can digitally add color really, really easily, and I can make them as big as I want," and so I started doing that and it was fine. But then you see the change in the way things are going. And it's like, if you want a naked picture of yourself digitally, you can ask AI now to just do it for you. Like, you don't need an artist to do that. Not that, artists who do digital work are still, doing it, but it it becomes a real challenge if you do portraiture work because people can request it on demand. So I just kind of got out of it. It didn't really feel like the way that I wanted to express myself. And I love other mediums I started playing with this season, oil, but acrylic, all of those, and it felt better. It
Yeah,
felt more
that
me.
was going to be my next question because you've had the gallery for 5 years now,
Mm.
so you've been in my face for 5 years.
I have.
um, and as I said, when you first came, it was mostly digital art, and then year two was more pencil and pastels and
Yeah.
colored pencils. Then year three, the acrylics came in, and then year four, something else came in, and now this winter you were working with oils.
Isn't that funny? It's
Yeah,
just
it's great how you're always looking, searching for the new technique you're gonna master.
well, I wouldn't say master,
Well,
but
you
yeah,
work well with it.
incorporate.
Yeah, incorporate.
But I would say like that's one of the perks of, doing art in a seasonal kind of way like this. We work really intensely during the summer to sell the stuff that we've created, but truthfully, it's got to be in the can and created like before that summer season starts or you're behind the eight ball. So it's like you spend the winter kind of thinking through, what do I want to say? What do I want to explore? How do I want to grow? And for somebody that, didn't go to art school, it's my opportunity to pick up a new medium and to see how I can use it. I ask a lot of questions. I take a lot of classes. And so, yeah, every year I feel like I add something new that I'm passionate about to my kind of toolkit.
And you spend your winters not in Provincetown, you spend them outside of New York City.
Yeah.
Where do you take your classes to learn all these new techniques?
Online.
Online.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have, yeah, a bunch of Domestica, which is like, I don't really know what it is, but they've got like every type of course that you could possibly want. And it's on demand and you just watch them and you complete the little lessons and it's really cheap. Highly recommend. That's where I learned, even when I was doing digital stuff, that's where I learned to do like digital art deco poster art or whatever it was that I was learning. The first time I used Adobe Photoshop stuff was me learning off of, one of these online courses where I'm mapping it out. So yeah, I had to learn most of the skills during the pandemic. And that was the way that things really flourished.
So how are things going now with oil painting? Because that's something you
Oh
were
God.
working on this winter.
I really like it. Um, but I don't know how much of it I'm gonna be able to do now because oil painting takes so long to dry and it's messy and during the summer, I once something sells, if I don't have something to put up, you better make it right then. And I don't have time to be playing around with oil and letting it dry. It's like, you gotta go. And if you're drawing somebody live, if they're posing for me, I certainly can't be like experimenting with oil and pushing it around. There's no time.
Hmm.
So just the nature of the beast is such that you have to be using fast medium.
Yeah. And you do that a lot. You work a lot with live models, live clients who come right in because I see your shutters going down and I go, oh, Eric has a client. Uh, so tell us more about that experience because it's a big part of your business model.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And if you walk through Provincetown and my windows are closed, you might think I'm like the business is shuttered. People come by all the time and usually I do live drawings during tea. So in Provincetown at 4 o'clock, everybody goes to tea. And so if you're an artist that primarily does queer art, your audience dries up around that time.
Because they all go to tea.
Right.
And just so you know, we're not talking about high tea with, Earl Grey and crumpets. We're talking about a dance party. It's like a daytime dance party from 4 to 7 that happens here through the summer season. But sorry, go on.
Yeah. So all the gay men will go to tea. And so that's when I schedule private sessions with people. So people come in, usually I do mostly with their partner. So it'll be like two guys that want to be captured for their anniversary or whatever. I pull down the blinds and then we do 3 poses, 10 minutes each. It's usually kind of rough sketching so that they get the idea of the poses. People don't really want to hold a really long pose if they've never done it before. They have this impression that it's 10-minute pose is really long if you've never done it before, and it's uncomfortable and whatever. So we keep it really short. They pick the one that they want to finish, and then that's the one I'll finish in whatever style they want. But yeah, if you come by and my blinds are down, there are naked people in there. So yeah.
And one thing you started doing also is doing groups,
Yeah.
because, people often travel here with a group of friends. So why not have a group souvenir, right?
I I've only done a couple, but I absolutely love them. I think it's really fun way. Here's my plug. If you come here with a house, right, and you've got like 8 guys all together, they all come in, they get naked. It looks like a little shower scene or whatever that we arrange. It's really fun, it's friendly, everybody's laughing and having a great time. And then, yeah, I did prints with you, so I'll draw the original piece, and then I'll do prints that we'll do, and everybody gets a print. So it's a really fun memento.
And you multiply your profit.
Yes, we maximize that, and it's just hysterical. I mean, like I said, what I love most about it is the experience.
Mhm.
Like, being able to be in there with 7 friends and me to have normally a conversation that's like when people are naked, the conversation that you have is a lot different than if they have their clothes on. Like, walls come down, and you feel like you have to trust somebody really quick, and it's a really great way to get to know people and bond with them in a really, easy kind of way where it starts off really self-conscious and then becomes this, like, really freeing experience.
Now, you talked a lot about working with men, but if people of other genders come to you, are you open to working with anyone?
All genders, all bodies. I've had a couple of lesbians. I've done, probably only 2 lesbians since I've been here as paid commissions. And I've done 1 straight couple, and, that was very interesting. I do 'em I thought I did very well, but it was a very different experience. Um, but yeah, she was so into it. The women are always straight men are really uncomfortable. Um, like, in general, even when they walk into my gallery, straight men are uncomfortable.
So if someone's in Provincetown and they'd like to get their picture drawn by you, how do they go about it?
You can either schedule it online, so some people will schedule it in advance, or they'll reach out to me through Instagram and be like, "Hey, I wanna get my portrait done, I've always wanted to do it." And I'll be like, "Here you go, you can schedule it and I'll do it," and some people do it a year in advance. Or they come, they walk in, they see the work, and they say, "Do you have anything available?" And I say, "Are you going to tea tomorrow? We can do it then, and if I have a slot, I'll slot them in." So I'm pretty flexible. I think during like August, there are some days that I'm doing multiple in a day. It'll be like 3 different couples of an afternoon. But then, in the early part of the season and the end, it's slower. And so yeah, you can definitely do it on demand. You just come in there and then at 4 o'clock we'll make it work. And if you're leaving the next morning and you need to do it at 9 a.m., I will be there with my pen and we'll do it at 9.
So tell us your Instagram account in case people want to reach you.
Sure, I'm EDL Draws on Instagram. I would say most of my business through Instagram, and it's so, so important. So it's EDL Draws. There's a lot of policing of queer content on Instagram. So I have had like community standards violations before and all sorts from just drawing naked bodies, but a lot of queer creators get targeted. But like, that's how I make so much of my money, right? Like, particularly during the off season, is directing people to my work through that platform. So yeah, Instagram is the best place for now to reach me until we have something a little bit more queer and friendly.
And does your website have a way to contact you as well?
Yeah. Yeah, you can
Can
get
you tell us your website address?
sure. I'm ericleshgallery.com
Eric with a C.
with a C.
So, Eric, as I mentioned at the beginning, I sort of tricked you into getting a gallery in Provincetown. So, tell us about that experience going from working as a lawyer to almost overnight running an art gallery in Provincetown.
Well, I'll skip over the time that I told my husband that that's what I was going to do, and just talk about the really pleasant parts, which were, I was driving. I just my grandmother had died, and she lived in Indiana at the time, and I was going to drive from New York all the way to Indiana to attend her funeral. So I rented a car, and I'm driving across country, and you contacted me with, as you just teed up, I guess you reached out, you were like, "Oh, he would be good in that space." We had just done Art Gaysel together, so we were adjacent to each other then, and you were talking about what you did, and so I was like, you said, "Would you like to, what do you think about an art gallery, blah, blah?" I'm like, oh, Gaston wants to show my work. And I was thinking, oh God, yes, of course, I'd love to. And then you were like, great, there's a space by me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean I'd love to do that. I don't know the first thing about that. Do I know the first thing about that? Do I want to do that? And because I was in the car by myself, nobody was there to like shoot me down or, I had time to ruminate on it before I was going to present it to anybody and they were going to say, that's the worst idea in the world. And so I kept it very quiet and I thought about it and I drove the whole time and thought about it. And um, the more I sat with it, the more I was like, I really want to do this. I know I can do this. And it's funny, I think I'm a very cautious person, except when it comes to really big stuff like this, where I'm like, you know what? I have a law degree. I haven't even paid it off yet. And I'm going to quit and I'm going to start an art gallery and we're going to make this work. I don't know how. Um, yeah, I just took that leap and I'm so, so glad. There's not a day that goes by that, and we have some bad days, right? Like where
Mm-hmm.
people come into the gallery and I mean, people say something nasty about like, "Oh god, look at," whatever it is. People feel very liberated to say whatever they want in my gallery because there's so much nudity and they can have a visceral response. So I hear all sorts of things. But most of the time, I'm just so happy when I get there. I'm overwhelmed, I'm angry, but I love what I do. I love working with people. I've never been happier in my life, and like I said, I loved being a lawyer, um, but there were parts of it that were just took such an emotional toll that now I get to volunteer and do things, and I have an outlet for that, but that daily drag of how impactful it is and how much weight and pressure is on me, it just doesn't feel that way anymore, even though I care deeply about what's going on in the world. So yeah, I just love it.
Yeah, well, I'm somehow, as I said, I was having this breakfast with Greg, and
Yeah.
it just was clear in my head, like, Eric has to be there. Um, my main concern is that I didn't want some sort of mortgage office to move onto the first floor of the Whalers Wharf, or I don't know, some other business that was not art related, because we need to keep the Whalers Wharf artsy. And especially to have another queer artist was very important to me. So I'm very glad it all worked out. But okay, so you came to Provincetown right after, and we had a face-to-face talk. You actually stayed in my house,
Yeah.
and we sort of explained the nuts and bolts of the whole thing, and you jumped on board.
You
Um,
didn't scare me away.
yeah, but how was it? I mean, your first year. Nobody knows you in town. Nobody knows your work. How did it go?
It's terrifying.
Because it was also 2022, so it was after the pandemic. But still,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, what I'll say is, community is very, very important. And while I felt really embraced by this community because it's so queer, um, I'm not a trained artist, right? And I'm coming in here and opening a gallery when, I mean, look at all of the people that you've had on who have been here, lived here, honed their craft, worked so hard to get in a gallery. And here I came into the space and I was like, you know, um, accept me and I want to make my mark here. I think you have to do it really delicately. And I feel like, one of the things that I do well is listen to people before I take up a lot of space. I try to to step back, right? And to make sure that I'm making friends, that I'm listening, and that I don't do things in a really aggressive manner. And so the consequence of that is that you kind of learn more slowly or make an impact more slowly. But it does mean that you probably don't burn as many bridges and you can have some steady growth that's sensitive to the community that you're in. And I think, I learned that as an early gay person is like what I needed to do to like adapt to a situation and make people feel comfortable and make myself feel comfortable. And I think that's a skill that gay men particularly have. But me especially with like when I got here being very sensitive to that. So it was nerve-wracking for sure, but I knew from the minute I started doing it, I was like, I love this. This is gonna work. And when I started doing the commissions and like people were doing them and I was booking them, I was like, I'm making more money doing this than I did as a lawyer. This is crazy. This is so fun. it's wild. And so after that first season, I mean, you know how this is. You pay, I'm renting here. I own a house in New York. I don't have a lot of money. I was a nonprofit lawyer. And so I'm putting down this big down payment for you pay in advance for your housing. And then I'm paying all this rent before I've made a dime. Like I said, my husband was like, and he's an actor. So he was like, what are you doing to us? But he went along with me and we're so happy.
And he's now been acting on the Cape even.
Yeah, yeah, he does shows out here.
You mentioned this already that, people come into your gallery and they have a reaction to your art. A lot of people are not used to seeing representations of naked bodies.
Yeah.
And even if it's not photography, it's illustrated, it's stylized, they still have a reaction to your work. So tell us a few stories about people coming into your gallery and having either highly positive or highly negative reactions.
I mean, I used to do, it's hard because we're sitting, but there's this walk that straight men do when they walk into the gallery and realize what they're looking at if they don't know, or they came with a group of women, and this rush to kind of get out without having to say anything. It's funny, they do actually check themselves. I feel straight people when they walk into a gallery like that, particularly straight men, I'm used to them taking up the most space, right? And they quiet down and they feel uncomfortable and they have to leave. And there's something really empowering about that, even though, I'm watching them have a reaction, that's fine. But it feels really good to be like, I've created a space where when gay men walk in or when women walk in, um, they feel comfortable and they can express what they feel about the art in a really freeing way because of the subject matter. So I have women that'll walk in right away and they'll be like laughing and pointing and talking to me about creating the work. And I think it gives a really easy way for people to let their guards down because they can have a reaction to like, "My God, there's, a naked man," or there are two naked men doing this, or, it's fun.
I've always felt you're very graceful with handling the public. Back in before the pandemic, I had a lot of art in my gallery that was queer art,
Yeah.
male bodies, and I found it really hard very often when people walked in and they would have strong reactions to not have a strong reaction myself.
Mm,
If people would point and laugh,
yeah.
I would feel deeply offended, even though I knew that this was their curiosity talking, this was their discomfort talking, not
Mm.
necessarily them expressing an opinion about my art. But I've always found that when people come into your gallery and they do that, you find a way to laugh about it and make them have fun about it. It's a great talent you have.
It might be why I chose whimsy as what I lead with. I think that takes an element of like, I take what I do very seriously, but I also don't take it super seriously in the sense that I do things that feel fun, that feel free, expressive. And so if people laugh when they come in, it's not like walking in and I've painted the, Sistine Chapel or something and I get very defensive about my work. I feel like that's a natural reaction to the type of work that I do is to laugh maybe. And I do think, when I first started out doing this, I would often apologize in ways for the work, right? I would say something like, "Yeah, isn't that, silly or whatever?" I go, "Well, I'm a lawyer and I'm just doing this as a thing, or whatever." And now I'm totally comfortable with being like, "Yep, I drew that and yep, you're going to have to deal with it,"
Hmm.
And if people laugh, they do and we'll have a conversation. There are very few instances where I've had somebody that walks in and has a reaction that I can't deal with or that I have to get angry or it ruins my day. But those do happen. I mean, we serve the public and we have a very personal type of business, both of us, where the vulnerability of sitting there every single day, no matter what's going on in your life, a lot of artists don't experience that, right? Like they have an opening where people will be drinking and talking and schmoozing and blowing smoke up your ass. But for us, it's like people are walking in and feel liberated to comment on whatever. And this is often, work that's taken, it's our life's work. So you have to like not only run a shop, but like check it, and
Yeah.
that's a skill.
Yeah, I fully agree. It can be very unbalancing. You know, people come in and they don't know you're the artist, and they start commenting about the art, and they say things that are sometimes very positive, sometimes very negative. But you just have to, listen to it and swallow it. And there's nothing much you can do about it.
Yeah.
And I've had multiple situations like, as you, I try to, turn this into humor, turn this into fun. But as you're saying, it's very vulnerable because I always say every piece of art is a piece of me.
Hmm.
So when they're looking at everything that's on the wall, these are all little pieces of me. And
Yeah.
if they're pointing and laughing at it, it hurts. So yeah, it's not something that all artists get to experience to sit with their art all day long, sometimes 12 hours a day, every day,
Right.
and listen to people comment about it.
It's intense. Yeah.
Yeah. What sort of questions have people been asking you about your art?
I get a lot because I do so many different mediums, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh my god, this is all the same artist. This isn't, multiple different people." Um, so I get that. People ask a lot about the experience of creating it because they have a lot of questions like, how does art like that get made? What's it like to work with you? How did you do that piece where, whatever it is, you draw these from life? Um, so there's a real, I think for most people, their only kind of experience with thinking about that is like from Titanic, where they think about Rose getting drawn and she's like, draw me like one of your French girls. And we have that image of like, oh my God, what's it like to be stared at in that way? And there's something just very, Jack, when he's sitting there drawing her, is very focused. There's clearly a connection between them, but he's at work. And the connection is very different than just like a pure sensual one. Um, and it's fascinating. I'm drawn to it. And I think a lot of people, when they have that kind of experience, it's a very interesting experience, right?
So, Eric, like me, you show other artists in your gallery in a pop up manner.
Mhm.
So, what do you have coming up this year in your gallery?
Well, a lot of things. I've had a couple of artists that I've loved working with in the past. So, Brad Welsh is coming back. He does these well, mine's really expressive. His is very true to form. So he draws with graphite very realistic portraits of all figurative work. Most of my work that I show is figurative. I have a couple of photographers coming. I haven't really announced who I have this year, but usually it's just a pop up. So it's only like a 3-day, 5-day kind of thing maximum. And I think this year it's going to be a lot fewer guests than I've had in the past. I do, while I'm an I don't lead with the fact, kind of like you, I don't lead with the fact that I'm a galleryist, right? I sell my work much better than I sell a stranger's work. Not a stranger, even a friend, because I'm able to talk about it in a different way. And gallerists have this particular skill set that I'm not sure that I have. If the artist is standing there, we do really well because they can talk about their work and whatever. The minute that person goes away, it's like, oh, this is a totally different skill to talk about somebody else's work. And I don't know if you have that experience, but like what brings me most joy is selling my stuff or having somebody else in my gallery have a space to be able to talk about their work.
I tend to be a bit of the opposite
Oh, really?
because when it comes to talking about my work, I feel a bit like a little wilting flower, like, oh, yeah, mom, it's just me. I just did that. Oh, it's nothing
Right.
important. I'm not saying that, but that's sort of the attitude I have. But when I show other people in my gallery, I feel so excited about having them in my
Right.
gallery because usually I will only invite people that I really, really admire. And so their work is on the wall, and I'm just gushing about their work, and it's so fantastic, so wonderful. I'm so happy they're here. And I feel sometimes I'm better at selling other people's work than mine. Maybe I need to change my model.
Come over and work for me.
Yeah. But along with your work in the gallery, we already mentioned you also work with the Life Drawing Group that happens here every Tuesday at the Gifford House. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so, I mean, started that group, um, long ago with my friend Jason, who's in town, who was like, "There should be naked men posing, blah, blah, blah," and so we were like, "Let's start a group." I've always done, life drawing groups that I've organized myself. I had one out of the Q, which was a big bar in New York. I had one in Brooklyn. So I've always loved bringing a live model and letting people experience it. I just love it. And I get asked all the time when I was in Provincetown, is there anywhere where we can do this? Or I'll post pictures of me doing this in a group setting. And they'll be like, where do I take these classes? I can't find any. And there are some great ones online, but I was like, we should have that here in Provincetown. And Carrie, your partner,
Carrie, who's my partner,
Yeah,
Carrie Bryant.
used to do them out of his house, but only in the off season because it's your house and, you can't really have strangers coming through. So this was an opportunity for people who were strangers who'd never done this before. We would give them materials and they could do it themselves. To work with a live model. And there are some weeks that, now Phil Jimenez that was on the podcast some weeks ago mostly runs it. But it's a different model every week. You come in, you can borrow the materials. Most people have never done it before in their lives. And it's a ton of fun. There are times where there are like 40 people in that space with a model, and it's so much fun.
And now the Gifford House has renovated the Wild Room.
I haven't even been in.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be even roomier and easier to fit people in there to draw more.
That's great.
Yeah. Tell our listeners where that group takes place and when.
It's every Tuesday from 7:30 to 9:30. Artists, whether you consider yourself an artist or you're doing it for the first time, we just ask that everybody who comes participates, right? You can't just like stand around with a drink in the background. So you have to make something. And Phil is really, really good about giving people some instruction, very basic instruction. And it's no model that's going to pose there for like 40 minutes and we're going to stare at the same pose. They're quick poses, they're fun, they're designed for mostly beginners.
And along with that, you talked at the beginning a lot about your activism. And this hasn't stopped in Provincetown because you are also the president of the board of the Provincetown Business Guild. I got that right?
I never say no to any.
I
I should say
know.
no.
So tell us about your work with the Provincetown Business Guild.
I mean, we were talking about how you feel accepted in a community, right? Like that queer community is so important to me. And when I came here, I did the carnival poster my very first year that I was here. And there was something about the way that the Business Guild reached out and they were like, we're going to, promote you. We're going to put, you on a banner. People were buying the original, poster from me. And I felt this embrace from them. And I felt my business really lift from having that, the business community behind me in a way that are lifting up the queer voices in Provincetown. And I was like, I love this organization. I want to, I've done board service before. I've been an executive director before. I feel like I have something to give. So I joined as a board member. And then, I became president about a year and a half ago. But I love the idea of every year, it gets harder and harder for Provincetown to maintain its queer identity, right? Like, you hear the Nantucketization of Provincetown all of the time, and you do notice changes, and it's so, so important that we keep what is essentially very queer about Provincetown marketed as such, right? The businesses can only do so much on their own without us packaging a Bear Week or a Circuit Week or a carnival to give it some kind of gel or glue. And so it's so important. And I love what I do. I volunteer. It's a lot of time, but I love it. I've always, even with my law work, like I volunteer a lot now doing stuff. And I just have always loved volunteerism.
For those who might not know, the Provincetown Business Guild is like a chamber of commerce, but specifically for queer-owned businesses or queer-affiliated businesses or people who want to support the queer community. And it's probably the largest business organization we have in town.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it was like, we're going to be celebrating 50 years. So we started in 1978. And you'll find these old posters that say Provincetown Business Guild at the bottom that's like, keep Provincetown queer, or it's good to be out in Provincetown, or whatever. And it's like, we were out there pushing, you're safe here, way back then. And it's so vital to maintain that. Like, queer spaces are under attack everywhere. And I think people really see the value of coming to a space and feeling safe. And Provincetown is that. It's expensive. It's a shame that the cost of entry is so high, but it's a place where, and you definitely feel this family week, um, where kids feel like everybody kind of looks like them or has an experience like them. And it's so important.
Well, we're very happy about all the work you're doing here in Provincetown.
Thanks.
Now, before I let you go, we have the last part of the interview.
Oh, God. Speed
The
questions.
Speed round.
Okay.
And I tried very hard to adapt it to your reality, but let's see. Okay. Considering you have been dabbling in all these different types of arts, do you prefer drawing or painting?
Drawing.
Yeah?
Always drawing. I love just hitting it. I like doing things that are fast, that don't take time to draw. The faster, the better. I think with my hand. If I can pick up an ink pen or a pencil, it feels like, that line from Sweeney Todd, at last my arm is complete again. It just feels like that fits. And everything else is kind of like, oh, how do I work this tool?
Mm-hmm.
So drawing.
Well, good. Since you have this admiration for Stephen Sondheim, West Side Story or Into the Woods?
Oh, God, Into the Woods.
Oh, yeah?
Mostly because that, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie version, but the filmed version really was my gay awakening. I watched that PBS video in groups with friends. This is with Bernadette Peters as the witch. And I was like, oh my God, I want to live in this world. I would sing every single line. My parents would let me listen to it in the car. Into the Woods by far. Now it's become, there's the bad movie that's out. It's not terrible, but other people know it. But it felt like you were part of a club if you knew Into the Woods back in the day. Whereas West Side Story, every high school had done it.
And if you want a beautiful portrait of Stephen Sondheim drawn by Eric Lesh, they're available in his gallery.
That's right. Or Bernadette Peters.
Well, that's my next question.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Based on all your pictures of the queer icons,
yeah.
Would you, if you had to go to a concert, would it be Bernadette Peters or Bette Midler?
Oh, God, Bernadette.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Bette Midler's not. If she's listening, I'm so sorry. But no, I saw a Hello Dolly with both of them. And I've just always been a Bernadette Peters queen. When I was a teenager, went to her show at the Tampa Bay Performing Arts Center and waited outside the stage door with flowers, and it was her birthday. And I was like, oh my God, happy birthday, whatever. And she took a picture, and there's a picture of me like looking totally psychotic. So I've always just been a Bernadette. But
you should put that on Instagram.
I should. I'll release that. Yeah, there is a picture of me with Carol Channing where I look. The classic is like, I'm so happy, Carol's here, and my mom's standing there in the background like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, well, tell me more about this. Like, your gallery attracts the strangest people. Last year or 2 years ago, all of a sudden, Audra McDonald's in there. How does that happen?
I don't know. Well, because my husband's an actor, and so he works with all these people too. And so he was like, Audra was doing a show at Town Hall, and he's like, my husband has a brand new gallery. Would you mind just like popping by? And she generously was like, I will stop in. I only have 1 second. I'm buying some fudge and whatever. And so she popped in and we snapped a picture, but she's so sweet. She we have friends that live in our neighborhood that are friends with her daughter. And they used to like, I remember going to a birthday party and Audra McDonald's on a trampoline jumping with a bunch of kids. And I was like, I just have to act like this is normal and I don't care. But she's in it. She was so down to earth.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, next time, send her across the hallway to my gallery too.
Right.
So you have some time off. Would you prefer going to tea or going to Boy Beach?
Oh, Boy Beach.
Yeah?
Yeah. But I love tea. I love, I love socializing and the quick meetup, but I like I mean, obviously, public nudity is not something that shocks me.
It's not allowed there.
It's not allowed. No one does it.
Nobody
Right.
does that. Nobody
That's
does
right.
that.
So yeah, depend on who's listening. But yeah, I think Boy Beach. I like the quiet. I like the sun. I'm from Florida originally, and so I thrive in the sun and outside. And yeah, I like that.
I have this image in my head, and I might be completely wrong, that when you go to Boy Beach, you also are doing marketing. You're there saying, hey, come to my gallery. Hey, I can draw you. Is that true, or is this something I just imagined?
You know, I only go to Boy Beach like 3 times a season, mostly because, and you know, we're in the gallery all of the time. And during the day is when we do most of our work, right? And so it's like, you know, if there are a lot of gay men in town, I need to be sitting there doing what it is that I do. So it's like, it's a beautiful day outside. And I'm so, you know, it's so depressing sometimes because we're going to be inside for sure.
Yeah, and the Whalers Wharf, we get daylight, but we don't get a lot of sunlight in
That's
there.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Yeah.
This is going to be very difficult.
Okay.
Jello or pudding?
Oh God. I love Jello. My grandma used to put everything in Jello. And so I just have this association with like floating things on a leaf of salad. I don't eat much of either now, but my grandmother used to do magical things with Jello.
I had a Jello cookbook when I was a kid, and it was from the Jello company. It was
Yeah.
like a little booklet. It was maybe like 50 pages, a little thing. And they had all these recipes for like Jello salads and
Yeah.
layered desserts and stuff like that. I made all of them. I loved them.
I bet you can, well, you can do Jello shots.
Oh, that too?
Gelatin, I'm sure. Yeah. I would read a cookbook like that.
It's probably still in my father's house somewhere. Anyways, we're done.
This was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming over,
Yeah, of
Eric Lesh.
course.
So remind our guests, where can they find out more about Eric Lesh and the Eric Lesh Gallery?
Well, in Whalers Wharf, so stop by and see Gaston and ME.
237 Commercial Street.
That's it. We're right under the movie theater. You can also find me on Instagram. You can find my EDL draws. And on my website, ericleshgallery.com. And yeah, walking down Commercial Street.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to stop by and have a look. His art is really beautiful, really uplifting, and really surprising. You know, who else can draw a whole body with just one line? So thank you very much, Eric. I'm so happy you came over, and thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.